My girlfriend pushed my disabled sister's wheelchair down the stairs. Then she found out I'm a federal judge. I never thought I'd be telling this story to anyone, let alone to a world of strangers. But maybe it's time. Not for sympathy, not for revenge, but because silence allows certain things to grow unchecked, and I won't let that happen anymore. My name is Ethan. I'm 35 years old. I've spent over a decade of my life devoted to justice, to truth, and to the idea that no one, absolutely no one, is above the law. I've spent long nights studying, fighting for fairness, and rising through the system until I became one of the youngest federal judges in my district. But this story isn't about my title. It's about the moment I realized that evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it sleeps next to you. Sometimes you fall in love with it. Her name was Vanessa. To the world, Vanessa was stunning, brilliant, poised, articulate, the kind of woman who made heads turn when she walked into a room. Not because she demanded attention, but because she radiated confidence. She knew exactly what to say, exactly how to laugh. I met her at a legal charity fundraiser. She was charming, told me she worked in public relations, and she admired how I handled a recent high-profile case. We clicked instantly. For almost 2 years, I believed I had found the woman I'd build a life with. And when I introduced her to my sister, Maddie, a bright, artistic, wheelchair-bound young woman with a smile that could melt steel, I thought I was introducing her to my real world, my heart, my family. Maddie is the light of my life. She was born with cerebral palsy and lost both our parents in a car accident when she was just 12. I became her legal guardian at 23. Every decision I've made, every case I've argued, every hour I've put in was for her. So when I brought Vanessa into our home, into our world, it wasn't just meeting the family. It was sacred. Vanessa, at first, played the part well, complimented Maddie's art, brought her coffee just the way she liked it, laughed at her jokes. But I should have known something wasn't right when I caught that look. Just once. A flicker of annoyance, of disdain. It vanished quickly behind her well-trained smile. I brushed it off. Maybe she was tired. Maybe I imagined it. But I didn't imagine what happened next. I could see the panic creeping into her expression as I stood there, motionless, looking right at her. It wasn't anger on my face. It was something much scarier. Stillness. The kind of silence that comes before a storm. The kind that tells you something is deeply wrong. She opened her mouth to speak, to explain, or to justify. I'm not sure which, but I didn't give her the chance. I bent down to check on my sister first. She was shaken, confused, and scared, but thankfully not hurt. Her wheelchair was dented, and one of the wheels was scratched badly, but she was okay. I whispered gently, "It's going to be all right," and picked her up, placing her carefully on the couch with a blanket. Then I turned back to Emily. "You pushed her," I said softly. My voice didn't rise, but each word felt like a verdict being passed. She shook her head, the denial automatic. "It was an accident. I didn't mean to," she rolled back. "I didn't see." I held up my hand to stop her. I saw the security footage. Her mouth snapped shut. The silence between us grew heavy. "You need to leave," I said quietly. She started to protest. "Wait, please. You don't understand. It wasn't what it looked like." "No," I interrupted. "I do understand. I understand perfectly." I didn't scream. I didn't curse. That wasn't my way. Instead, I walked her to the door, opened it, and stood there until she stepped out. And when the door closed, I locked it. Not just physically, but emotionally too. I shut the door on someone I once thought I loved. The following days were surreal. Emily tried to call, text, email. Her messages varied from apologetic to desperate to defensive. At one point she even sent a message that said, "I didn't know who you really were. If I had, I would have never done something so stupid." That told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry I had power. You see, Emily had no idea I was a federal judge. To her, I was just some boring lawyer with a good heart. She thought she was doing me a favor by staying with me. She thought she could treat my sister however she wanted because, in her eyes, we were beneath her. And that was her downfall. After Emily was gone, the house felt quieter, not emptier, just lighter, as if the space itself exhaled with relief. I spent the evening sitting with my sister, watching her favorite show. She didn't talk about what happened, and I didn't push. Her trust in people had already been tested far too much. And I knew the best way to rebuild it was to simply be there. But inside, I was thinking, reflecting, how did I not see this earlier? The signs were there. The way Emily would gently mock my sister's speech, always framing it as a joke. The way she'd avoid taking her places, or complain about the wheelchair taking up space. Subtle things, dismissive tones, cold glances. But I brushed them off, because love has a way of blinding us to cruelty, especially when it wears a charming face. That week, I took some time off from work, not because I was spiraling, quite the opposite. I was anchoring myself again. spending time in nature, journaling, meditating, being present, and most importantly, caring for my sister, who needed to see that not everyone leaves when things get hard. Then came the fallout. Word started getting around. Emily had told a few friends her version of the story, that I had overreacted, that she didn't mean it, and even that I used my job to intimidate her. Funny how people show their true colors when they lose their mask. But here's the thing about being a federal judge. I've seen lies before. I've seen manipulation, arrogance, deceit. And I've learned that the truth always rises, no matter how deep you try to bury it. Our mutual friends started pulling away from her. Not because I asked them to. I didn't say a word, but people saw. They understood. You don't harm someone vulnerable and then cry victim when you're held accountable. Weeks passed. I resumed my court schedule, taking on complex federal cases with the same clarity and neutrality I was known for. To my colleagues, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But inside, I had grown. I was no longer just a judge on the bench. I was a man who had just seen cruelty up close, in the very home he thought was safe. My sister and I developed new routines. I took her out more, to art museums, to small cafes that had ramps and smiling staff, to parks where we'd sit under trees. A few months later, something unexpected happened. I was presiding over a high-profile case, a white-collar criminal investigation involving fraudulent real estate ventures and misappropriated funds. The courtroom was packed, media buzzing. As I walked in, robe on, expression composed, I noticed someone sitting in the back row. Emily. She looked different, disheveled, tired, older than I remembered. Her eyes avoided mine, but I could feel her presence. She wasn't involved in the case. She wasn't even connected to anyone in the courtroom. I believe she just came to watch. Maybe to see if I was still standing. Maybe to see if I was still me. I didn't let it rattle me. I conducted court as I always did, with fairness, precision, and dignity. My reputation wasn't just intact. It was stronger than ever. Not because I was harsh, or because I sought vengeance, but because I never allowed personal betrayal to cloud my public duty. After court adjourned, I walked through the back hall as always, flanked by clerks and officers. And there she was again, standing near the exit. "Judge," she said quietly, her voice barely more than a whisper. I paused, looked at her. Yes. She opened her mouth. No words came, only silence. Then her gaze dropped, and she walked away. I didn't chase after her. I didn't ask her why she came, because by that point, I had nothing left to prove. After that silent encounter at the courthouse, I never saw Emily again. I sometimes wonder if she was hoping for forgiveness or closure. Maybe she thought she'd find some version of the man she had left behind, someone still hurt, still craving answers. But I wasn't that man anymore. In the quiet that followed, I started to appreciate something deeper than justice or closure. I began to truly embrace peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from vindication, but the peace you earn when you've walked through fire and come out on the other side whole. When you realize that other people's betrayal doesn't define your worth, that their cruelty is not a reflection of your value, but of their own unresolved darkness. And with that peace came a sense of power, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't shout, or gloat, or retaliate. It simply lives. I returned to my routines. Each morning, coffee in hand, reading over case files with the early light slipping through my window. I'd take walks in the evening. No phone, no distractions. Just me and the sound of the city settling in for the night. I spent more time with my sister, who continued to make strides in her therapy and personal growth. She had joined an adaptive arts program and started painting beautiful, abstract landscapes full of color and movement. She even sold a few. One day, as we were sitting on a bench near the waterfront, she turned to me and said, "You know, if that never happened, you'd still be with her, still trying to make excuses for the way she treated people." And she was right. Sometimes, life yanks us out of comfort not to punish us, but to protect us, to place us somewhere better, somewhere we never would have gone if left to our own decisions. A few months later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. It was from Emily. Inside, just a few lines. "I was wrong. I can't take it back, but I needed you to know I think about it every day, about what I did to her, and to you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just hope one day you'll believe I truly regret it." I read it once, then again, and then I folded it up and placed it in the drawer of my desk, not out of anger, not because I needed to hold on to it, but because I didn't want to destroy it either. That letter wasn't a key to reopen old wounds. It was a quiet punctuation mark at the end of a long, painful sentence. And sometimes, closure doesn't come in a dramatic moment. It comes in the decision to not reply, to not reach back into the past for what can't be repaired. It comes when you realize that moving forward doesn't require dragging your pain with you. So I let it sit there untouched, and I went on with my life. I began speaking more publicly, not about Emily, or the case, or even the incident with my sister, but about compassion in the justice system, about how empathy and accountability are not opposites, but partners, how real authority doesn't come from fear, it comes from understanding. I became an advocate for disability rights too, quietly, behind the scenes, helping organizations write policy and secure funding for accessible infrastructure and resources, because I'd seen what could happen when people didn't care, and I couldn't unsee it. Sometimes people ask me how I stayed so calm through it all. The truth? I wasn't always calm. I was devastated, angry, haunted. But over time, I learned something powerful. When you refuse to let pain make you bitter, when you meet betrayal with dignity instead of vengeance, you win. Maybe not in the eyes of those who cheer for revenge, but in the eyes of your soul, in the quiet spaces only you can feel. You win because you stayed true to who you are. Months turned into a year. By that time, my sister was walking again with assistance. The doctors called it a miracle. We called it her fierce will to rise. She joked that she'd sue Emily for damages if I didn't sentence her harshly enough. We laughed about it, finally. And that laughter was healing. She never let what happened define her. And neither did I. One day, we were sitting outside her rehab center. The sun was warm on our skin. Birds were chirping. Life was simple for a moment. And she turned to me and asked, "Do you miss her?" I didn't answer right away, because the truth was complicated. There was a time when I thought Emily was my future, that we'd grow old together, that she'd be there holding my hand through every storm. But now, I miss who I thought she was, I said. And that was the truth. What I learned from all of this, from betrayal, from public fallout, from watching someone you love hurt someone you'd give your life for, is that life doesn't always hand you closure in a box with a neat bow. Sometimes, you build closure out of silence. Sometimes, you find peace not by getting justice, but by knowing justice never needed to scream. I'm not telling you this story because I want sympathy. I'm telling you because if you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever watched someone you love turn into a stranger, if you've ever had your heart broken by someone you trusted completely, you're not alone. And more importantly, you are not broken beyond repair. You're not too damaged to begin again. Looking back, I realized that the worst moments of my life didn't break me. They revealed me. They showed me what kind of man I am when everything I thought I knew gets shattered. And while I never would have chosen that pain, I'm strangely grateful for it, because it woke me up. It reminded me of what truly matters: integrity, loyalty, family, quiet strength, and above all, the ability to rise, even when you've been pushed to your lowest. Today, I serve on the bench with a new kind of clarity, not just as a federal judge, but as a man who's walked through fire and come out the other side. I hold people accountable not with rage, but with wisdom. I don't seek revenge. I protect what matters. And when I look at my sister, thriving, laughing, walking tall, when I look at myself in the mirror, knowing I stood tall when it counted most, I feel nothing but peace. So if you're listening to this and you've been betrayed, abandoned, used, or underestimated, please hear this. You are not what you do now, with the strength that's been hiding in you all along. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this story moved you, helped you, or made you feel seen, I'd be honored if you'd leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs it. Because sometimes, a voice that's walked the same path is all someone needs to feel less alone. Until next time, stay grounded, stay strong, and never forget your worth.